Thank you. Who do I have on the telephone lines?
Lisa Swan.
Welcome, Trustee Swan.
Thank you.
Ryan Jacob.
Trustee Jacobs, good to hear from you. Okay, I'd like to call to order the regular meeting for June the 20th, 2018, and I'll ask us to stand for the singing of O Canada. Director, could I get you to do roll call, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening, trustees. This is our roll call for our meeting of 20th June 2018. Trustee Armour.
Present.
First Vice Chair Carpenter.
Present.
Trustee Cram. Trustee Jacobs.
Present.
Next week, eh? Trustee Wendy McPherson. Present. Trustee Bill McPherson. Trustee McAllister.
Present.
Second Vice Chair McDonald.
Present.
Chair McMillan.
Present.
Trustee Richards. Present. Trustee Swan.
Present.
Student Trustee Marshall Wilson.
Present. Mr.
Mr. Chair, you have quorum.
Thank you very much. I need a motion that the Upper Canada District School Board approve consent agenda items 3.02 to 3.03, June the 20th, 2018, as submitted. Moved by Trustee Richards, seconded by Trustee Kirkner. I'll ask you to cast your votes, please.
I'm in favor. I just have to go back in.
Thank you very much.
I'm in favor too.
Thank you. And that, Trustee Wendy McPherson.
Yeah, I'm in favor.
Okay, thank you very much. And that carries. Do we have any conflict of interest declarations? Seeing there are none, I'd like to move on to the first item on our agenda, and I'm just going to change location here. So this is an evening where it's happy and sad at the same time, because one of our superintendents is retiring and leaving us. And Val, you've been with us in many, many roles and many capacities over, I don't want to say many years because I don't want to make that sound like you're like one of the older people here, but I do know that you have played many roles in our system. And because of that, you have impacted the lives of so many children. And it's a sad moment to see you leave. You've been a part of this board table for years. And we are sad on one hand, but I'm sure you are happy because you know you're going on to the next stage and the next part of your journey. So on behalf of the board, we wish you the very, very best of luck. And thank you for your years and years of service. And I do. Right behind me, I have something for you. It's the director.
I didn't do so well last week when I had to say goodbye. I'm going to try to do better tonight and not cry. But you do give your heart and soul to the work, and I am going to cry. That's how it works with me, just so you know. But we are, as Jeff said, so fortunate to be able to do this work where we touch so many lives and get to know so many people and work with such a wide variety of people. And it's more of a gift to me than anything I've given back to this organization and the schools. And as I said last week to the principals, I have loved it. There were lots of hard days. It doesn't matter. I love the work, and it's been great, and I've been blessed to work with all of you. So thank you very much.
As they said at TR Leisure last night, you two gentlemen can return to your chairs. You had to be there, but anyways. So Val, all the best, seriously, from all of us. A report to the board from private session, June the 6th, at its committee of the whole meeting in private session, June the 6th, 2018. 2 legal matters and 1 personnel matter was discussed. Due to a time-sensitive matter, 1 recommendation was made or was brought forward to the board meeting of June the 6th, 2018. So moving on to the next item, this is a report from our student trustee for the 2017-18 year, and I'm going to turn this over to Trustee Marshall Wilson.
Thank you very much. I'm just going to grab the clicker. Good evening, everyone. This is my year in review report. So it's just to summarize how I went through my student trustee term and what I saw, what I tried to accomplish, and to just inform the board of everything that happened. So I'm going to start with Student Senate. Student Senate this year was an amazing experience. The group of students that I got to work with were phenomenal. They were amazing leaders, and it was just a pleasure to work with each and every one of them. Going into the position, I had 2 goals in my mind. The first one was to create a sustainable structure for Student Senate, and the second one was to increase the awareness for Senate within our schools. In terms of creating the sustainable structure for Student Senate, what that means is when I was going through and the 2 years prior that I spent being a senator, I sort of identified an issue where the high turnover rate of Senate caused sort of a breakdown in the goals and the communication between those senates. It's the same thing that Osta-ACO faces with the high turnover rates of their executive council. So in my mind, I wanted to try and help create a solution or create sort of suggestions for the next student senate and maybe the one after that on how we can minimize the sort of negative effects of the high turnover rate. The first thing that came to my mind was forming committees that would be parallel to the board's work plan, and that would make sure that they're staying on the same topics throughout the years. It also allows senators to focus in on one area of the school board and one area of work that we do, and they can maximize their impact on the board that way. Committee reports went along with the idea of committees. This was a way to effectively sort of take the ideas that the committees have come up with throughout the years and present them to the board. This year, obviously, we did not come up with those. I'm not sure if it will be continued next year. It may or may not be. It's completely up to my incoming, of course. Senate meetings, times and locations and frequencies. Throughout the course of the year, I had multiple comments given to me in conversations with senators who were commenting on what they said was a lack of meetings and their want to have more meetings, longer durations, so have it for the full day instead of the shorter hours. And then locations, that was just brought up a few times, and I had a conversation with the director as well, just on possibly using our high schools instead of other locations to show off our infrastructure and what kind of facilities we have. The elections of senators is another topic that was brought up frequently to myself from senators, just talking about how sort sort of a uniformed or somewhat uniformed system of elections for senators throughout all of our high schools would give more recognition and more credibility, if you will, to Senate itself, because we have a wide range of ways of senators getting elected, from actual elections to being appointed by their guidance counselors or principals. The website / handbook is something that I worked on very intensely at the end of the year with a group of students. The idea is to make information about Senate more available to our student body, as well more available to senators, and also to sort of solidify that information and the guidelines, the bylaws, and all, because a lot of senators came into this not knowing what they were getting into, and some even left not knowing what they were ever in. Work has been done on that, and it's sort of a legacy project, so it might be handed down. Hopefully it will be handed down to my incoming student trustee. And then the second goal that I had was to increase the awareness for Senate within our schools. That consisted of two ideas, which was promotion within our schools and impact within our schools. Promotion is regarding the idea of having more sort of awareness within our students. So the sort of baseline, and not a lot of conversations were had on this topic, unfortunately, but the one thing I heard was posters and more information that connects to the website and the handbook. Mostly because none of our students, really know what Senate is. It's a very small percentage that actually are aware of our impact and what we do and how we represent them at the board table. And impact within our schools really connects to everything else that I was talking about, and it's just how much our senators can impact our schooling system and how much they can really make a difference, because the more they make a difference, the more students recognize that difference, the more we can promote it, and the more students feel that it's a real position and it's a real thing that they can rely on and talk to their senators. There wasn't a lot of conversations that, unfortunately, either throughout my term. That's everything about Senate. The only other thing that I really took away from Senate is the emphasis that with Senates, we really need to be working with the Senate before us and after us. It's just like OSTA-ACO. It's nothing, we can't get a lot done in 1 year. So that's really what I tried to set out and do, was set the groundwork for the next Senate to be able to build upon this Senate. And I felt that would be the best way to make my Senate the most efficient. Now about OSTA-ACO, just that it was an amazing experience, and it's a great professional development opportunity for any student trustee, and just thank the board for their continued support of the organization. And then a thank you to everyone at the board table for making this year absolutely wonderful. You were all so supportive, an amazing board to get to work with. And thank you to Lisa for being an amazing board secretary and supporting me and making sure my emails get where they have to go. So thank you all. I had an amazing year, and good night.
We're not signing you off yet. Do we have any comments or questions? Trustee Winnie McPherson.
Okay. I know I may have asked you this, but is there any funding for the Senate? And do you know what it costs per meeting when you guys do have them?
There is funding for the Senate. There's an ample amount of funding for the Senate that I've been giving that impression. I've never seen numbers, and I'm not sure of the exact cost per meeting.
Do we have any of that?
Mr. Chair, through you, through the board's operating budget, we do have an allocation for Senate that includes transportation, hospitality, printing, those types of costs. So I don't have the dollar figures in front of us, but we do make that as a separate budget line as part of the board's operating costs.
Okay. Any other? Trustee Winnie McPherson.
Okay.
Yep, go ahead.
Maybe it's one of the last questions, but how can the board help get some of these improvements that you're suggesting?
To the Senate itself?
Yeah, so we can make these improvements. What is your game plan? Like, how do you go from here?
The board throughout my term was very supportive, and just continue the sort of very close work with the student trustee and with the Senate, and just continue to show the same support that they showed me, and the work should get done.
I guess maybe more so is I'm trying to figure out is there any motions that are going to come from this table to help with regards to some of the suggestions he made with the elections and promotions and what have you? Is there any of that going to be coming? Are we doing that for him tonight, or is that something?
No, this is just a report with no motions attached.
And what? So how would we ever get those changes that he suggests to be talked about?
Well, they would be discussed at Student Senate,
Correct.
and then Marcia would sit down with us, and then we would, if we felt there was something that needed to come to the board because it was a significant change, we would discuss it. At the
So as a
meeting.
trustee, I have no input
On those?
on any of those?
Well, right now,
things
it's
that
in,
you suggested?
no, I'm not saying that, but right now, it wouldn't be coming to board in this format. It would be in a different format.
So I guess maybe I'm asking, when would it ever come around?
Director?
It has to be from Marshall or from the director?
Mr. Chair, through you, we haven't done this in a while, but the staff can bring a report back about student voice that also includes Student Senate and the state of Student Senate, how we support that, and how it's also supported through our policy and procedure around the student trustee.
Oh, okay, do I make a motion to have that report done up, or?
No, I wouldn't do it tonight. This was just a report tonight, so there will be no motions coming out of that.
Okay, so how do I get him his report question? How do I make him do that?
Mr. Chair, through you, it would be featured as part of the board's roadmap for making reports for 18-19, and so the Board of Trustees would see that the first or second board meeting in September.
First or second.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Trustee McAllister, you had your hand up?
No, that's fine. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Mr. McDonald?
Just to pick up on that, also during our budget process, right, if we are made aware of those types of things, then we have an opportunity through budget process to support the work that's being done by the students. And if we have those reports that are coming forward during the course of the year, then that's our opportunity to ensure that we put the money where it needs to be, or should be, where we want it to be. Thank you, Coleman.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? I'm going to take a wander back to the podium again. I don't get back here very often, so I kind of enjoy it. Marshall, you know, as trustees, we see many student trustees come through the door, and it's our hope that when the year that you share with us, you learn as much from us as we do from you. We're in this business for one reason, and that's the young people that we serve. And to be able to have a strong voice that represents our young people as you have been, it allows us to do our job better. We know that you're moving on to other things, university being one of them. We wish you the very best in your educational journey, and we wish you the very best in your journey of life, because we know you've got other plans as well. So good luck, and on behalf of the board, thank you so much for everything you have done for us. And remember, you're not done yet.
Create it like a fan in here.
We'll be digging into our well. Start with what's the foundation?
Okay, the next item on the list is I'm going to ask Dennis Kolak from the Health and Safety Specialist to come forward, and along with our Superintendent of Business, Bob Backstrom, we're going to get a Ministry of Labor and Health Safety Initiative update.
Good. Welcome, Dennis. And Dennis is here to talk about a joint initiative from the Ministry of Labor and the Ministry of Education, where they've actually set up to visit 72 boards across the province through the year 17-18. And we have a PowerPoint that we'll just walk you through, and I'll turn it over to Dennis.
Yeah, thank you. So as Bob said, there was a initiative. Ministry of Labor does have initiatives over the year. This one was a joint one between the Ministry of Labor and Ministry of Education, which is not common. So they looked at the 72 different school boards. They visited those, and they're looking for specifics on workplace violence in the schools or in the school boards. Looking to promote a positive safety culture through Ontario schools. And so we had 2 meetings at our school board. This is a document they shared with us, the Ministry of Labor. When I say they, the Ministry of Labor. It was 2014 document, and what they're showing here is, if you look across the top, it has the occupations, and then we have number of lost time incidents on the middle column, and the far right column has the percentage of workplace violence lost time incidents for those total incidents that took place. So the top of the list for this was elementary and secondary school teacher assistants, and that's 15% of their lost time accidents were due to workplace violence, as categorized in this document. Then the second one was the police officers at 14%. Then you slide further down, you see elementary school and kindergarten teachers at 5%, and then secondary school teachers at 2%. And again, that's all Ontario-based. The first meeting took place on February 21st, and it involved our inspector that we have for this area, Diane Hanna. She stopped in and met with members of our committee, well, only 2 members actually, the Joint Health and Safety Committee, co-chairs, and then the director. We had superintendents attending, somebody from our behaviorist team, and then myself. And what they're looking for is they're collecting documentation on our health and safety programs with respect to workplace violence. So they want to see our policy and our programs or any procedures we had. They want to see our internal responsibility system, so documents to support that. So that has to do with an effective Joint Health and Safety Committee, safety inspections being done in the workplace, and corrective actions on those, that kind of thing. Workplace violence process, do we have one in place and how does it work? That's a requirement under law, so they want to see how we do that. And the summary of our incidents in the workplace that have to do with workplace violence. So we gave them all that information. They took it away, reviewed it, and came back for a second meeting on May 22nd. And this was, again, so it's an Ontario initiative. So we had the Ministry of Labour Regional Director of Eastern Ontario visit with this one, and she brought with her some other members of her team. And then from our team, we had the co-chairs of the Joint Health and Safety Committee. We had affiliate members for the different unions attend. Our director, we had superintendents attend who had different responsibilities within the school board and student safety and workplace violence, and then myself. So looked at those requirements. They're looking for, in our workplace, that we had controls for the risk of workplace violence in the schools. They wanted to make sure we're making provisions for summoning immediate assistance, and that's high in their priority, being able to summon immediate assistance. They included, they want to see that we had processes for workers to report incidents of workplace violence, and then how do we investigate those incidents that take place. They want to see a process for that too, and being able to demonstrate that too within the workplace. Some other key elements that they discussed or they stressed was the assessment and reassessment of our workplace violence. So that's an assessment of all the different schools or all the different locations we have and offices too. We have those. We have workplace violence assessments completed for all the schools and offices within our board. They also wanted to see those results of those assessments shared at the schools and with the Joint Health and Safety Committee, which we do. And they wanted to see what our right to refuse unsafe work looked like within our school board. So they want to make sure that that process is communicated and followed within our workplace, and we were able to demonstrate that. Within the workplace, so what is that? So the worker has reason to believe that the workplace violence is likely to endanger himself or herself, has a right to refuse unsafe work. There are some provisions or limitations under that under Regulation 857 for teachers, which do not apply to educational assistants and other non-teaching staff. So this is the meat of the details. So this is a summary of the results of that report that was attached also to this presentation or this review. So they looked at the workplace violence policies and procedures, and they listed that as no concern. So that's a good thing. That's what we want. Risk assessment and reassessments, there's no concerns for that. They reviewed those documents in our programs. Measurements and procedures for reporting online accident reporting, no concerns there. To summon immediate assistance, there was no concerns. Notification to workers, a person with a history of violence, to the workers, and there's no concerns with that. We're doing that. Workplace violence procedure, or refusal procedure for violence, and no concerns there. Internal investigation analysis of violent incidents, no concerns. And the Joint Health and Safety Committee functioning in an effective manner, and there's no concerns with that either. And so the next steps that we looked at as a board, some things that we're looking at doing out of this review, and we had planned anyways, was one of the things was a Ministry of Labor representative offered to attend our Leadership Day in August to give a presentation on workplace violence in education and preventing violence in the schools. So we accepted that at the meeting, and we're still working out details when that will take place and and who will be attending that. The number 2 item was Val Allen and the special education team are preparing a consistent approach for schools to use for the school management of student individual education plans, or IEPs, behavior plans, safety plans, and notification of potential risk forms that are used in the schools too. These are all programs or forms that we use, or documents. Number 3 was the investigation of the Ministry of Education's direction or directive and funding requirements to implement a common online reporting tool in relation to violent incidents for workers and students in the workplace. And that just recently took place, and that's for the upcoming year, 2018 and 19. And the following item is to work with Safe Schools and determine exactly what tool we're going to use, right? Whether that be through a different vendor or internally, or how that's going to work actually within our school system. So overall, it was a good review. No concerns were listed, and they left their visitation notice for us, and we posted that, and that's the end of my presentation.
Thank you very much. I'm going to open up the floor to comments or questions.
Through you, Chair?
Yes, Trustee Swan. And then Marshall.
Why does it differ, you said early in your presentation, between teachers and EAs? Is this to do with collective agreements, or what exactly were you referring to?
Yeah, sure. Through you, Chair. So that is a legislation. There's legislation in place so that if the teacher is in a position where the student is in imminent danger or needs assistance, the teacher cannot refuse to do that job, cannot refuse to work in that location or that job location. It's very similar to what the police and firefighters have. So the police cannot refuse work if somebody else is in danger, and the firefighters the same way. The teachers have that same legislation, or the same type of legislation.
Thank you. Student Trustee Marshall Wilson.
This is a general question more, but I've always wondered, when we refer to workplace violence in classrooms, are we referring to more sort of younger children throwing blocks, or more accidental violence, or is it more purposeful violence against teachers and EAs?
So through you, Chair. Yeah, so we definitely define it as something like that, slapping or hitting, so it's more purposeful. So it's usually in the elementary section of the schools we're looking at this, not so much secondary, mostly elementary, but yeah, that's what we're looking at. So we document that taking place. So it could be throwing a block, could be slapping, pinching, or something like that too.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other comments or questions? Trustee McAllister.
Thank you. Dennis, I have a question for you with regard to workplace violence. There's increased data to suggest that this is a very real problem in our schools across Ontario at all levels. And I won't ask you in terms of what we are doing here at this board, because I don't think that's the purpose of your report. But I would like to ask you what the ministry representative will be planning to do on August 2018 when he visits the team here with regard to workplace violence and prevention programs. Do you have any idea what they are planning on doing?
As far as the through you, Chair.
Mm-hmm.
With the ministry, at this point, there's no further intent on this other than they collected their information. Some school boards received orders to complete different things if they didn't have their certain aspects of their program in place. But this was pretty much it. At this point, they were gathering information, and they'll probably use this data for something. But we asked them that, and there's no real plan to go forward other than a working group that they have.
Supplementary, Chair?
Certainly.
So why then are they coming to the meeting, the leadership meeting in August?
Oh, sorry. So for the August meeting, sorry, I misunderstood your question. Sorry about that. Through you, Chair. So they're going to give a presentation on some of the different programs that the Ministry of Labor have in place, right? For mostly for inspections in the workplace to make sure programs are in place. So that they just give a presentation on their full presentation that I presented here, a couple slides that give that full presentation and discuss that in more detail and look for feedback from the education community on what they can do better, right, to assist.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Trustee Wendy McPherson.
Thank you, Chair. I wanted to just go back to number 3, or slide 3.
Sure.
I'm trying to understand what exactly the 15%, if half of the EAs are getting accident reports, that 15%, what is that? That's 15% of their time, 15% of the day, what is that?
Sure. So through you, Chair, so the 15% is 15% of the 271. So 15%, so total accidents took place, so lost time injuries that took place for secondary and elementary teaching assistants in the schools.
Right.
So those 271 in 2014 of those injuries took place, so they lost time from work. Of those 271, 15% of them were due to workplace violence.
Ah, okay.
Yeah,
No,
sorry.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. I probably
thank you.
didn't explain it well. Sorry about that.
Okay, thank you. Any, Trustee McDonald?
Thank you. So Trustee McAllister said that there's lots of data out there about this information, and so this is based on 2014. Is there recent data that would show that the lost time incidents have increased, or is that number still staying fairly relatively low? And before you answer that, this is Ontario, right?
This is Ontario, yes. Yeah. So through you, Chair, so the data we receive from the Ministry of Labor for Ontario is always a couple of years behind, right? Yeah, so I can't. So 2014 was the most recent one they were able to share with us. The information that we have from our workplaces that shows there was a slight increase last year, or 2 years ago, I guess, right? So we share that as we come up in the fall again. We'll give you some more numbers on that, right? But we're staying about where we are. There hasn't been a big change. We'll probably see a slight increase though within our school board.
So out of the 2014 stats of 271 lost time incidents, what would be Upper Canada's percentage? And not to a specific number, but we're talking 271 across all boards.
Yeah, that's across through Chair. That's through all boards in Ontario. Yeah, for all teachers. I think what did we have last year? I can't remember. I'd say 9% maybe. I'm guessing at this point. I can't
So we're
remember.
9% of the 271, or we have?
Oh no, we're not even close. No. I have no idea what that number would be. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. No, I have no idea.
Okay. Well, like, you think we had 9% of our incidents were lost time?
I'm thinking back. Yeah, I'm trying to remember now. I'd have to pull up the report to be honest with you. Yeah, it's a good question.
And I
should have came with
apologize.
that.
I'm going off memory too, but I can recall that our numbers were fairly low.
Yeah.
Compared to the number of staff that we have as well.
Yeah.
So,
It wasn't a big number as far as total people, right? Total workers. No, it wasn't a big number. Yeah. So when I'm saying 9%, I'm saying 9% of our total lost time accidents for our workplace.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Seeing there are none. Dennis, thank you very much. Bob, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move into private session. Before I do that, I need a motion that the Upper Canada District School Board move into Committee of the Whole June 20, 2018 at 7:07. Can I get a motion for that? Moved by Trustee McAllister, seconded by Trustee Wendy McPherson. And cast your votes, please.
Yeah.
And that carries. Thank you. And I need another motion that the Committee of the Whole move into private session June the 20th, 2018. Moved by Trustee Richards and seconded by Trustee Kartner. And again, cast your votes. They're all in. And so I'd ask you to switch over to the private session agenda. Welcome back, everyone. Report to the board from private session June the 6th. There was a motion to come out of the... We're not there yet?
Number 8.
Where are you?
Number 8, which is private session.
Oh, I did the first one. I didn't do this. I just did the second one, didn't I? All right, the second motion. I just did that one.
Board credit number 10.
Number 9.
You can forget about it.
You and
No, it's not supposed to be there.
Oh, okay.
I. Moving into
My apologies. We're down a little further.
number 10.
Number 10. Yes.
May I apologize. I was making sure my agenda was up and running, and when you called for conflict of interest earlier, I should have declared a conflict in item 10.01. I will do so now, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much.
And I'll leave the room.
Really? You gonna leave?
Yeah.
Okay. Don't go far. All right, this is the board credit and lease facility resolution. I can turn this over to, I have a motion. I better put that on the floor. We're going to eventually turn it over to Superintendent Backstrom. This is a motion that the Upper Canada District School Board authorize, actually I've got 4 motions. I think in this case I'm going to turn it over to Superintendent Backstrom. You're going to address each one of these motions individually?
Whatever your pleasure is.
All right, if that's the case, let's do that. I'll put the first motion on the table, and then you'll address that, and then I'll put the second and so on. Okay, so the first motion is that the Upper Canada District School Board authorize administration to borrow funds as stipulated in Board Policy 325, cash management, and consistent with the Board's banking contract for cash flow purposes and to support the operating needs of the Board in the amount of $25 million for the 2018-19 year. Moved by...
Chair, point of order.
Yes.
Would it be out of line to consider the 4 motions en bloc?
I have no concerns with that, Director.
Mr. Chair, through you, I think they are materially different, and I believe that the board would need to address them individually. We appreciate the sense of economy of trying to do that, but I think in this instance that they are materially different.
All right.
And
I'm sorry
if
for
the
the
board had any objection, they would want to speak to that by each motion.
Okay. So do I have a mover and a seconder for that? Trustee Richards, Trustee Karkner? Okay, thank you. Superintendent Backstrom.
Okay. Through you, Chair. What we have is the credit and lease facility, and we do this annually in our banking according to Board Policy 325 on cash management. Now, the $25 million is our normal operating line. It's unchanged from last year, and we have it there as a contingency. In actual fact, it's usually drawn on perhaps in September, just before we get our money from the ministry around the middle of the month. And there's 3 days there where, with construction and everything going on in the summer and our lower cash flow, that we do draw on it, but that's about it, and it's for a small amount. So, nothing further to say on that one.
Are there any comments or questions? Seeing there are none, I have a motion on the floor. The Upper Canada District School Board authorize administration to borrow funds as stipulated by Policy 325, cash management, consistent with board banking contract for cash flows, and to support the operating needs of the boards in the amount of $25 million, 2018-19. Moved by Trustee Richards, seconded by Trustee Kartner. Can you cast your votes, please? Carries. Thank you very much. The second motion, I need a mover and a seconder, that the Upper Canada District School Board authorize a credit facility in which banks, RBC, Royal Bank Canada, Royal Bank, in the amount of $2 million by way of letters of credit and letters of guarantee. Moved by Trustee Armour, seconded by Trustee McAllister. And I'll turn this back over to Superintendent Backstrom.
And again, this is part of our credit facility. The letters of credit and letters of guarantee are used mainly for construction purposes. There's requirements during construction and from the municipality. And they want to ensure that work is going to be done. They ask for letters of credit or letters of guarantee. And again, it's not drawn on for a lot of money. I think right now we might have around $70,000 outstanding on letters of credit. And that's it.
Comments or questions? Seeing there are none, again, I have the motion moved by Trustee Armour, seconded by Trustee McAllister, that the Upper Canada District School Board authorize a credit facility with its bank, RBC Royal Bank, in the amount of $2 million by way of letters of credit and letters of guarantee. Cast your votes, please.
Do my director's report.
And that, Trustee Carton, Trustee Wendy McPherson, that carries. Thank you very much. The third motion is that the Upper Canada District School Board authorize a credit facility with its bank, RBC Royal Bank, in the amount of $20 million for short-term borrowing needs related to capital project until such time as the Minister of Education funding is received. Moved by Trustee Wendy McPherson, Trustee McAllister, and over to Superintendent Backstrom.
Through you, Chair. This is a change in that in previous years we would have identified the capital projects in the year and put lines of credit for every project. We've discussed it with our banker, and they pointed out that a pooled approach would work just as well. So we have an amount of $20 million, and we could access that for the various construction projects. It's not as active amount as we might have had maybe 4 or 5 years ago when they didn't fund the projects on an ongoing basis. Right now, every 6 months, the government will advance funds to cover what you spent on construction once you do the paperwork, and that really reduces our need for a line of credit. But we do look at our cash flow, we project it out, and we come up with a $20 million amount. Our banker has agreed, and that's what we present here.
Trustee Armour?
Just a quick question. I used to work for Royal Bank. Have they changed your review on what they require per year from you guys if you up your credit facilities? Your annual review or quarterly? Just a question. In terms of statements they require, costs, that type of thing? Do you know?
I've met with our banker, I've discussed it, I'm sure we've provided him with information. I haven't heard of any concerns or problems.
Well, not problems, it was cost, because they usually charge, that's all.
They're not charging us for the line of credit unless we actually use it and incur interest costs.
Or any review that they do, they're going to charge, typically they charge a fee. Just
I'm not aware of
you're not
any
aware?
fee.
You didn't sign anything that said there was a fee? They would have to explain it. Okay, good.
I will check tomorrow, though. Thank you.
Just a point.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Okay, again, I have a motion on the floor by trustee Richards, trustee Cartner, that the Upper Canada District, oh, sorry, am I in the wrong line? Oh, Bob, sorry, my apologies. Trustee Wendy McPherson and trustee McAllister, that the Upper Canada District School Board authorize a credit facility with its bank, RBC, in the amount of $20 million for short-term borrowing needs related to capital projects until such time as the ministry funding is received. And please vote.
But can I ask a question regarding it? What's the interest rate on that line of credit?
The one we're looking at right now, Royal Bank Prime minus 0.5.
Thank you.
That's standard.
And that carries. Thank you very much. And the last motion is that the Upper Canada District School Board authorize a lease facility in its bank, RBC, lease facility with its bank, RBC Royal Bank, in the amount of $3 million for short-term borrowing needs related to capital expenditures and acquisition of equipment through fixed-term lease. Moved by trustee Karkner, trustee Wendy McPherson, and over to you, Superintendent Backstrom.
Okay, through you, Chair. This is a facility we have available. We have not used it because we tend to get our leases through our vendors. Dell Computer Equipments is an example. There's one or two others, but we do have it here as it's available if we need it. There's no charge to have it sitting there.
Thank you again. Comments or questions? Seeing there are none, I'll ask you to cast your votes. It's, again, I can read it out. Trustee Kartner, trustee Wendy McPherson, the Upper Canada District School Board authorized a lease facility with its bank, RBC Royal Bank, in the amount of $3 million for short-term borrowing needs related to capital expenditures and acquisition of equipment through fixed-term lease. Cast your votes. And that carries. Thank you very much, Superintendent Backstrom. We can get trustee McDonald back in here. Thank you, trustee McDonald. All right, so we're going to turn this over, the special education plan. I didn't want Superintendent Allen to think we'd forgotten about her, and we saved you till later in the night so you could really appreciate us before you leave. So I'll turn this over to you.
Through you, Chair. It's my pleasure to bring our report on the special education plan under Regulation 306 and the Ministry's Standards of Special Education. It requires the board to review annually and submit the amendments to the Ministry of Education for a special education plan. The SEAC on June 5th, 2018 reviewed the plan and brought a motion forth recommending the approval of this plan. So the documents that you have before you are three. One is a summary of the changes, a list of the changes. One is the special education plan with the changes highlighted in yellow with strikeouts for the parts that will be eliminated. And then the third document are the attachments that go along with that with the same changes highlighted in yellow and strikeouts for parts that we will not be considering in the plan anymore. So we had our basic premise of the plan remains the same mostly for moving forward. Many of the changes that you'll see highlighted are date changes or numbers changes. For example, how many psychoed assessments were completed or what our staffing numbers are and those sort of things. So the biggest, there's two parts to the plan that have most significant changes. The first part is on the section on IPRC statements, pages 31 to 35 from last year's plan, and will be pages 28 to 31 in this year's plan. The change there is that in September 2017, we received a new document from the Ministry of Education for special education plans. It replaced 3 previous documents that we had in place, and they were all consolidated. The intent of the language in the documents are very similar to what was in the past, but there were some tweaks to that, and we felt that our IPRC placement descriptions should match that document, the Special Education in Ontario Kindergarten to Grade 12 document. So we had some significant changes in that area, and we deleted our previous language out of the plan for that one. The second area that one other point about the IPRC placements. The language was also a statement of inclusion philosophy that was in the document, and we wanted to include that in our plan as well. The second area that was a bigger change was the part for the kindergarten. Before, for our early intervention, we talked about a Welcome to Kindergarten program, which we still do in our board, but it's not the trademark program that we used to do. So we made some edits to our plan reflecting that language, so that it reflects that our early intervention are events that happen in our schools, that we welcome students into kindergarten, but not using that one title from the Learning Partnership. In the appendixes, again, the biggest change is to the appendix that gives reference to the IPRC placement. It's a document that goes home to parents when they have an invitation to come to an IPRC statement, and so the statements in that document reflect what I already described from the plan. So that was the main change in the appendix section. And the other thing I wanted to highlight was on page, in the plan on our staffing numbers, so special education staffing, it would be on page 37 and 38. It reflects our new staffing numbers for the upcoming year, which I just wanted to highlight that with the use of the funding that was put in place in the EPO grants, we were able to maintain staffing at the level that we've experienced in past years. So we've used that funding for that. Our teacher staffing and our system staffing is almost exactly equivalent from the past years, and our educational assistant staffing was increased, as you saw in the budget process, where our special education overall amount was higher than past years. So I present to you the special education plan, and I'm very open to questions.
Superintendent Al, I was so excited about you doing this, I forgot to put a motion on the floor before we started, and I didn't have the heart to stop you, so I apologize to everyone. I didn't put the motion on the floor, so allow me to do that before we get to the questions. So a motion that the Upper Canada District School Board approve the recommendations to its special education plan for the 2018-2019 as per the staff report June the 20th, 2018. Can I have a mover and a second? Trustee Richards, Trustee Kartner, and I'm opening it up to comments or questions. Trustee Richards.
I just wanted to make a comment to thank Val and all her staff and the SEAC members for going over the whole process over the past year and coming up with the plan that we have here in place.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, I'll ask you to cast your votes, please.
Nice.
See you tomorrow. See you on Friday.
And then Superintendent Allen, you'll know that. Glad to know that was unanimous. That carries. Okay, thank you very much for that. Moving on to the next is an update on pending major capital projects. I'll turn this over to Superintendent Hobbs.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's my pleasure to bring to board a brief update on the construction project for building a new K-6 elementary school in Brockville to replace Toniata Commonwealth in Prince of Wales. As you know, last year around this time, the Ministry of Education announced $10.8 million in capital funding to build a replacement for Toniata Commonwealth in Prince of Wales. And we added further funding in the amount of around $3.5 million in December to add childcare spaces to that new school as well. Just recently, yesterday, actually, June 19th, UCDSB staff concluded a conditional agreement of purchase and sale for 14.33 acres of land located at 550 King Street West in Brockville for the construction of the school. That, as you know, is also to local residents more familiar as the location of the former Phillips Cables plant downtown on King Street across from St. Lawrence Park. This purchase is conditional on funding approval by the Ministry of Education for the purchase and site prep costs. board approval. We have a number of standard elements of due diligence, including environmental and geotechnical testing. There's some rezoning and some consent to sever processes, and also the conclusion of a partnership agreement with the City of Brockville over some shared works. Because as you know, the City of Brockville in December actually voted to relocate or move a planned construction project of a twin pad arena downtown adjacent to where we're proposing to build the new school as well. This gives you a high-level overview of the site location and draft plan. So you can see here that there will be the school will be located towards the west side of the 550 King property. School board will have again 14.3 acres. There will be a shared entranceway towards the east end that will be shared with the twin pad arena and field and eventual residential development at the north end of the property. There will also be shared stormwater works and some shared infrastructure connections. Otherwise, the two projects of the twin pad and the school will be entirely separate, but obviously close and related to each other on the same site. Thanks to the City of Brockville, they've actually undertaken to develop some renders. So obviously the focus for them is on the twin pad. But what you can see here is a sort of an artist rendering of looking south towards King Street. From the north end of the property, you can see the parking lot, and off to the right of the slide, you can see the school. As you know, the school will be a repeat design of the design for the new schools that we've recently opened in 2016 and 17 in Cornwall, Bridgewood Public School, and Kemptville Public School as well. Obviously, that site will be adapted for the unique site conditions of this site, but will be substantially the same as those two other schools. This is another rendering, so looking north, approximately over the river towards the new school and potential twin pad, and eventually a residential development at the north end as well. Just a little bit about the partnership with the City of Brockville. So around September of last year, we began looking at the 550 King site as a normal process. And when we're looking at sites for a new school in a community, we work extensively with municipal staff. At that time, we became aware that the city was actually considering placing a twin pad arena in the same vicinity that we were considering building the school. So we began exploring opportunities to cooperate with the city while keeping our projects separate for a variety of reasons. So we actually commissioned a study jointly to actually look at how could we find some synergies between the two projects without actually connecting the two projects. And our consultants came back and said there would be approximately $800,000 in shared cost savings between the two projects associated with sharing things like parking, entrances, site servicing, and stormwater management structures. And as I mentioned earlier, the city in December actually formally voted to make the downtown site their preferred location for their project. So next steps for us, we are really, as I said, we have a conditional agreement of purchase and sale. We're very pleased to have that, but we're going to start working almost immediately on clearing the remaining conditions, including the environmental testing, geotechnical testing, and so on. We're actually going to start very shortly beginning on adapting the design of Bridgewood and KPS to fit the site and the size and the addition of those childcare spaces that I mentioned earlier. And we're expecting that we're going to actually have the school ready as planned in September of 22 for its opening. So thank you very much, and it's been a real pleasure to bring this to you this evening.
Thank you very much. Do we have any comments or questions?
Through you, Chair.
Yes, go ahead, Trustee Swan.
I guess my concern is the shared parking, and I don't see any designated bus lanes or designated parking for the school during school hours. Is that going to be part of our proposal on the shared parking?
Through you, Mr. Chair, there are actually bus lanes. It's just I think the site plan is really intended to more show the relationship of the structures to the site rather than the configuration of the actual bus lanes. The actual entrance road has been sized to 3 lanes to accommodate turning on and off of King Street, as well as queuing of buses, and even at a preliminary level, it's been designed in cooperation with STEO to make sure that we can accommodate busing. And with regard to parking, I think that it's important to note that typically under the city's bylaw, we would require around 80 to 100 parking spots to build a school of our size. this size, and with the twin pad, we'll have access to over 300 parking spaces for both the twin pad and the school. And it's our feeling that it's unlikely that we're going to very often encounter situations in which the twin pad is operating at peak capacity at the same time as school hours. But even still, we're confident that we're going to have more than adequate parking, and we can designate parking specifically for the school as we see fit.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments, questions? Thank you very much for that. Moving on to the next item, I'm going to turn this over to the director, dealing with Compliance Audit Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. The members of the board will see the, the report that's attached to tonight's agenda, identifying a requirement under the Municipal Elections Act that the school board, as do municipalities, need to appoint their own compliance audit committee within a certain time frame as part of the electoral process. And that is, of course, in the event that there is any question about the process in which the candidates had engaged their candidacy and their election, and whether or not that process and those actions fell within the Municipal Elections Act or outside of the Municipal Elections Act. So what's before you tonight is really just an information item, so the Board of Trustees is aware, Mr. Chair, that we will be putting a posting, publicly posting expressions of interest for people who would wish to be part of the Compliance Audit Committee, and then to bring back to the Board in September, and certainly before October 1, what was the response and who we would be recommending would be appointed to that committee.
Thank you very much. Any comments or questions on that?
Through you, Chair, I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
Because we're such a large board and many areas are covered, and we all apply in different areas if we're going to run, do all the, like, let's say I apply in Kempville if I was running again, does that all come to Brockville for the audit committee then, or are they just dealing with people that applied through Brockville, the city?
Doctor?
Mr. Chair, through you, the Compliance Committee would be dealing with any irregularity about campaign financing of any candidate within the constituency of the Upper Canada District School Board. So it would be regardless of where the zone or ward would be. The purpose of the committee, really, Mr. Chair, is to determine whether or not an auditor should be appointed to look into any finance matters that have been brought forward to me in the capacity as your Secretary of the Board, where they believe that a candidate may have not complied with the Municipal Elections Act and spending accordingly.
Thank you. Any other, Trustee Wendy McPherson?
Just so that I mean, this is something obviously new, because I remember dropping off my financial papers at my municipality, not the board. No, I don't understand how it's working. I'm sorry.
Mr. Chair, through you, it's the what would happen is that the complaint, according to the Act, or concern that would be raised by a member of the public, that notice would be given to the clerk of the municipality or the secretary of the local board. So it would eventually land in my office, and from there we would need to bring those concerns or applications to the committee, and then the committee would need to determine whether or not an auditor would need to be appointed.
Oh, I see. So they're just in case there's a problem. They have only notified if there's a problem.
Correct.
I see. Okay. Thank you for that.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, seeing there are none, thank you very much for that, Director. Moving on to the next, I believe, I don't have it on my agenda, it's the SEAC report. And I'm going to turn that over to Trustee Richards.
Thank you, Chair. Trustee McPherson is away tonight. He's at a graduation, so I'm going to be giving the report. The Special Education Advisory Committee met on Tuesday, June 5th, and that was our first ever live stream night. And from what I hear, there were people watching it as it was being live streamed. and also it has been viewed many times since it's been put up on the web. So it seems to have been a success, and during that we had 3 presentations. We had director, he gave us a little on the role of SEAC for our audience, and then we had an inclusive accessibilities presentation, which was about how they use the technology that's available in the schools. Then we had supporting student transitions, and that was an excellent presentation because transitions aren't just at there's big ones and there's little ones too. They happen throughout the day. They happen at those big times at the end of the year, at the first of the year. So that it was a really good presentation on how they help the students with the transitions from those little ones to those big ones when they're leaving our schools, going out into the workplace. So that was that presentation. Then we worked on our special education plan, where the motion did come forward that the committee approved, or recommended that the board approve it. Then we had our non-action items, where Superintendent Val Allen gave us an update on the staffing for 2018-2019. We also had a little presentation for Val at SEAC because we were going to miss her there also. And so our next meeting's not until September, so Tuesday, September 11th, and everybody's welcome to come. Or watch online, yep.
Thank you. Any additional comments or questions? Seeing there are none, thank you very much for that report. Trustee McDonald, you say you do not have an update. Okay, thank you very much. Director.
So, Mr. Chair, 2 things, well, really 3 things to bring back to the board this evening as comments. First of all, I hope that the trustees noticed when they were coming into the boardroom today about our crew wall. I'd like to indicate that the crew wall that we have up is using the acronym of C, R, E, and W. And as the board knows, we've had reports back on our director's work plan that was in response to the board's work plan and board strategic plan. But what we're seeing up on our crew wall is examples of how students have used their own lens to make authentic and actual connections to a conversation around crew. And it's really quite interesting to see what students bring to that dialogue about what they see in their own schools around collaboration, wise use of resources, educational programming, and wellness. I really do want to credit Linklater principal Kim Melvin Long and one of the teachers on staff, Mrs. Pomeroy, who brought 11 students from Linklater to work on that wall, and then engaged Trustee McAllister and the chair of the board in a very vigorous question and answer session about their public roles, their responsibilities, and asked me a few questions as well about my work. I thought it was really a wonderful opportunity to link students with community work through their elected officials and to take an interest in how their school is actually supported by a school board. I also want to make sure that we properly credit the notion of the crew wall, where that came from. I wish I could say that it came from my office or from the board office in particular, but it actually was inspired by some examples of crew walls that our principals and their staff have been creating themselves. Glentay Public School is one that has an active crew wall. South Crosby Public School is another. And also in town here, Mr. Chair, Westminster Public School and Toniata Public School, both principals and their staff there have come from the roundtable sessions that we've had and have then had their own collaborative conversations with their staff to make site-based connections to crew. All to say that I think that we have a very strong application and integration of all the dialogues that we're trying to have as a system at the site level, and then from this experience at the classroom level as well. Secondly, Mr. Chair, I wanted to bring to the trustees' attention that distributed to you this evening was a memorandum regarding a follow-up that was requested by the board at its meeting 2 weeks ago on the 6th of June regarding staff processes for addressing inquiries about student transportation matters for the next academic year. This memorandum will be circulated to principals, school principals, and our senior staff, as well as STAO this evening, or if not, tomorrow morning. But I just wanted to make sure that trustees knew that they were part of that that circulation of that memo, and that it came from their discussion that we had on that particular board meeting. And I hope that the clarification and the information is helpful for any calls or inquiries that you receive from your constituents. Then lastly, Mr. Chair, we certainly want to wish our secondary school students the very best of luck. Their exam period starts really soon. I'm looking at our student trustee and some students at the back of the room, and would want to make sure that they know that we're thinking about them, and we hope that they show their very best of their learning and what they've acquired over the course of this semester, and give it their very best and show that that they are prepared and ready to go for those critical moments. So thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'll turn that back over to you.
Thank you, Director. This is the time of the year when trustees get involved. When trustees get involved.
None.
Trustees get involved in graduations, and I know that many of us will be attending those, and I know that last night was the Brockville T.R. Leger graduation. I know Carol was involved in one in her area. I'm assuming tomorrow night, Trustee McDonald?
No, Trustee McPherson.
Trustee McPherson is going to be at the T.R. Leger graduation. That was my last one, that I've been to all of them. I failed last night to bring my Kleenex, and I should have. They're absolutely an emotional experience to listen to the hardships that some of our young people go through. So on one hand, you are feeling the emotions of the struggles they've gone through, and at the same time, you stand there extremely proud of our staff and the opportunities they are giving those kids. And they're not all kids. Some are much older than kids. The opportunity to walk across that stage and graduate. And so it was a very heartwarming experience, and I know that Trustee Kartner wanted to mention something about her area. I don't normally pass it over, but on this one, go for it.
Thank you for that. I was reassured that the ceremonies were beginning each year with, or each session this week, with the men singers from the Akwesasne Reserve, and it was quite impressive to have that as an opening, an acknowledgement of the lands that we were on. And another point, besides the graduates from Rockland and Castleman, I was most impressed with one of the ladies who came forward to make a presentation to a graduate. And this lady was a member of the local Legion, and most of the Legions do make presentations to the graduates for whatever reason. But this one lady had created an award of her own, and the group had decided it was going to be called an Alumni Award, because this lady, Christine DeRoche, is a graduate of T.R. Leger and is working for T.R. Leger office now as their custodian. So she felt she wanted to give back. So she created this award, and it's going to be ongoing as the Alumni Award for a graduate. So I was most impressed with that move, and I think so was the Director Sliwa and Superintendent Mills, who were present as well. So I just wanted to share that. I hadn't seen it in all the years I've been a trustee, that happening as a former graduate, so I was most impressive.
So in closing, Marshall, have a good summer. Good luck in high school. Superintendent Val Allen. We've said it once, we're going to say it again. We're going to miss you. All the best in the years ahead. Thanks again for everything you've done, and so many kids out there that would thank you too. To the rest of us, it's summertime. Time for us to recharge our batteries a little bit, put our heads together, and just relax. So I hope everyone has a safe and relaxing summer. And I noticed that Lisa's put legendary summer, so I assume she wants you to have a really good summer. Trustee Wendy McPherson would like to have a motion, along with Trustee Kartner, that the regular board public session be adjourned at 9:40. Next meeting will be September 12th, 2018. All hands up.